bigger than he was used to seeing. The surface also looked strange to him. He didn't recognize any of the crater formations he was used to seeing. It was almost like it was not the same moon. He managed to push that thought out of his mind as being beyond ridiculous. Despite everything else that had happened in the situation he in, the idea that even the moon he was looking at was not the same moon was used to be utterly ridiculous. Wasn't it? Of course it was. Illogical rubbish. He mentally chided himself for even letting his mind go down as far of the train as he had. Then he tried to get some sleep. Suddenly, he was falling through time, space, and dimensions. He looked down and screamed as she saw a giant hole open up as if to swallow him. An orange glow appeared in the hole along with leathery wings and a scaly tail. He yelled out again as a dragon burst from the hole, sending a long blast of fire into the sky. As he yelled, the dragon turned its great head and spotted him. Quickly, the dragon gave chase. James tried to run, but falling through space the way he was, there was no place he could go. The last thing he saw was the dragon's great mouth opening, followed by another burst of flame aimed directly at him. He suddenly woke up in a panic, sweating and looking around frantically, thinking a moment before realizing it had just been a nightmare. He noticed he was still outside, and his hopes sank again as he realized that part of it, at least, had not been a dream. It was light out now. He looked at the sun, just becoming visible over the horizon, raising his hand to shield his eyes from the rays a bit. The rising sun comforted him somewhat. Despite everything that seemed to be wrong with the world he found himself in, the sun rising was the only thing that still seemed to be working completely reliably. The only thing that possibly couldn't go wrong. James stood up and stretched, looking around for the first time with daylight to help him see. No particular direction really looked better than the other. Well, I may as well pick one at random, he said to himself as he began walking. James hadn't gone far before the vegetation started getting taller and more dense. Thorny branches and weeds began to catch on his clothing and tear it. He cursed as one of the thorns ripped into the flesh of his arm, leaving a shallow cut that started to bleed. This isn't gonna work. The vegetation going in this direction is quickly becoming thick enough to be impassable, he said to himself. He turned around and started walking back in the direction he came from, hoping to find easier going in a different direction. He trudged his ways from his position on his stomach. Oh my god, I screwed up. He trudged his way back in the direction he came from, fighting off branches, weeds, and thorns as his clothing became more and more shredded. His foot suddenly caught on a tree root, sending him tumbling to the ground face first, popping out of the vegetation into the little clearing that had been formed by the debris from the lab. Damn! He cursed again in frustration as his ankle twisted from the fall. Then he heard a short, startled cry in front of him. He looked forward from his position on his stomach. Next to some of the debris from the lab stood a small yellow pony? At least that's what he thought it was. But it was no ordinary pony. This pony had wings. It appeared as startled as he was at what it saw. It looked like it was about ready to retreat, but then it gathered itself together. Nothing could have prepared James for what had happened next. The pony actually spoke. What are you? It said in a timid, quiet, and feminine voice. Oh yeah. James was so dumbfounded that the pony had just spoken to him that he didn't respond. This wasn't happening. Yeah, it couldn't be. He was dreaming. Well, that had to be it. Or he was hallucinating because of post-traumatic stress after the Tevatron accident. Oh yes, it had to be one of those two things. Oh, this couldn't possibly be real. The yellow pony was frightened, but whatever the creature in front of her, it appeared injured and in need of help. She gathered her courage and walked toward James, asking again, "Who are you?" James started to panic when the pony walked towards him, thinking maybe she intended to harm him in his vulnerable state. His sanity was hanging by a thread because of everything that had happened. In desperation, he quickly pulled out his iPhone and pointed it at her. "Stop, or I'll shoot," he said, despite knowing how cheesy that cliché line sounded. The pony kept walking towards him. "But I just want..." Before she could finish, he tapped his thumb on the touchscreen of his iPhone in desperation. Out of the speaker came a Star Wars blaster sound effect. Amazingly, the strange electronic sound had the effect he intended. The shy pony's eyes got wonder, and she gave a whinny before bolting around in the other direction. Then, James watched in awe as she leapt into the air, spread her wings, and flew away. James just laid where he was, breathing heavily and still pointing his iPhone in the direction she had gone. He couldn't believe that actually worked. He put the iPhone back into his pocket and tried to collect his thoughts, which might as well have been papers flying around a typhoon at this point. Flying horses only existed in Greek mythology and children's fairy tales, didn't they? Surely he was dreaming, or hallucinating from stress. Nevertheless, as a scientist, he had to allow the room for the possibility, no matter how remote, that what he had seen was actually real. Science cannot prove a universal negative after all. And that brought up another problem. If he really just had been a sentient, talking flying horse, she probably had friends. They might have built some sort of society. She would go back to her herd, or whatever they called their societies, and tell them what she had seen and that he had threatened her and shot at her with his iPhone. They would be coming for him. And they probably wouldn't be friendly or sympathetic to his case when they found him. Alright, that was a long one. I'm actually going to check how long we've been going at. 14 minutes. Holy shit. That's a long one. Oh, this is going to be a hard video to put together. Okay. So that's the video for today. Tomorrow for 100%, guys, I'm going to guarantee you this to happen unless something comes up. Every other day, today was, the God particle. Tomorrow, I promise you Princess Luna. Saturday, I promise you another God particle. And, it's going to be a repeat. I promise you a new fanfiction every day. Not a new one, but a new chapter from each fanfiction every day. Also, after I'm done with these two fanfics, I'm probably just going to be finishing up the God particle because I realized that taking up two fanfics was not a good idea. I may take up Princess Luna's second story, The Student of Sparkle, because that sounds like it looks like a great story. I only skimmed through it at this point, but I will read it on the weekend, and I'll probably be doing that after this. So I'll be juggling two fanfics for a while. After that, it's going to be over with, just one fanfic at a time. I will do Clopfics, because quite frankly, they sound like a lot of fun to do as a commentator. You got to throw in whatever the hell you want, because there's no way you can do it with a straight face, what some of you write. Do some comedy, because I realize that both the fanfics I'm doing right now are pretty deep and death and scary, and some guy getting trapped in another universe, and now he thinks he's going to be killed. Yeah. Pretty dark stories, but thank you for listening. This has been the Ruski DJ Pony, and have a nice day.